everybody, this is Tina with Rehatch Designs. Hope everybody is doing well. This is our last installment of our folio. Since the last time, all I really did is sew around it, and then I added some of the Tim Holtz linen tape around it. This is what we started with, and if you haven't watched the whole series, you can go back. It's linked, and we made this pretty much. And then after that, in our last series, we went ahead and decorated it with some Tim Holtz paper and tissue paper. We also made these little file cards, and that was in the last video. Okay, so I sewed around it basically for looks. The only part that was really structural was the very back, and that's where I made a pocket. The linen tape is structural because we will be adding things to it, and there's all different kinds that you can get they're not only decorative, but they really help reinforce the spine. And we're going to be making this Midori style with some eyelets, so that'll make it stronger. And the very back of this folio, I added that pocket, and that is sewn in, and that's how I sewed in the middle part right there. You'll see that. So other than that, the rest of the sewing was really just for looks, and it's kind of a messy sewing. We're going to be adding this pocket notebook, and this notebook is basically just a standard size little notebook that you can get just about anywhere. I bought this on Amazon. I couldn't find the link for that, but if I do find it, I will put that in. I'll put the link in for as many items as I can find for you, so that you can find these items yourself. I'll also show you in the videos so that you may want to look up, see if you can find them also. So I haven't really decided which side I want to put this on. So basically, I end up putting it on the left side, and then I've got some file folders that I made, and these file folders come from the new Chapter 3 Sizzix die 665930. That's also the same die that I used for slides. So what I'm going to be doing in this is I am going to be adding this notebook. So in order to do that, I'm going to do it Midori style, which means you can take it in and out. And I'm adding some eyelets to the spine area. And there's basically two spine areas in this little folio, and they're about 1/4 inch, so they can hold a little bit. You could just put regular papers and stuff in there and decorate them or do whatever. You don't necessarily have to put a notebook. But anyway, I'm putting an eyelet on the top and the bottom of this side, and I'm also going to do it on the other side because that's what how I'm going to insert my files. So there'll be one on the top of each one there, and then also on the other spine. So after I have my 4 eyelets in, I'm going to add my elastic. And I use 2mm elastic. I find that size works well. It's not too bulky, but yet it's really strong. So I tie my elastic on the inside. It's my preference. You could put it on the outside. It really doesn't matter. And I kind of tie it and then leave the strings long until I know for sure that it's in there, if it's tight enough or too tight or whatever, so that I can take it apart and redo it if I need to. When I finally do get it to where I want it, I will cut the strings shorter, and then I'll usually put a dab of glue on the knot, and that's just to make sure that the knot doesn't come out. Okay, so that's where that's going to go. And on the other side, I'm going to be putting the file folders. So that's how that's going to work. We have a total of 4 file folders. What I'm going to be doing with these file folders is I am going to be gluing 2 of them together. There's a total of 4. And I'm doing it opposite each tab, so there'll just be 1 tab on each side. Later on I'll sew where I've glued, but mainly just for looks. But for the most part, I'm doing that because I'm trying to make little pockets, and so there'll be a total of 4 pockets when we get done. I'm also going to put a little slot in each of these. I probably should have done that before I glued it, but that's okay. And I'm doing that just so that you can tell that it is a pocket. And I altered plain paper with the pattern paper so that you would have room to write in the inside of these. And of course you could decorate the inside too, but I did it for that reason. I'm trying to make this a very practical little folio, even though it's very decorated. And I hope I accomplish that when I'm done. Okay, so these are my little paper closure things. I don't remember what they're called. I'll try and link them. But I rusted these. But anyway, what I'm doing now is I am measuring where I want to put this. I'm going to put like a little paper pad that I make in there, but I'm making sure that I'm not getting it in the way of where the folio closes. So I'm just putting it where I need it, and then I'm marking it. And then I'm just going to punch that out. So that is just going to fit there. And now what I need to do is I'm just going to put that in, and then I'm going to make my papers to go in there. So now I'm just going to get a bunch of different types of papers, just random things that I have, just to make it look interesting. I have some scrap Tim Holtz paper, but I decided it's too thick. I really don't want to put that in there. And I just have some different graph paper, ledger paper, coffee dyed paper. So I'm measuring the opening to see what size I need to put in there. And I'm just going to cut it down. I'm using my decal edge just to make it look torn. Of course, you could tear it with a ruler too. And now what I'm doing is I'm just using my same piece so that I can figure out where I need to put the holes. Okay, so I'm just going to line up the holes and then put this in my little paper pad. And later I add more to it, but for now, this is structurally, what I did. So you can see how I made that. Okay, so for the very middle flap that folds down, I decided I wanted some red, white, and blue paper, so I found a scrap piece and I cut out this circle, And then I have like 2 other circles. I think one of them has some packaging, so it's a little bit thicker. And I'm going to glue all 3 together so it's reasonably thick, because I need a closure to make sure this doesn't open and close all the time. So I've got all 3 of those together. And I will be punching a hole in the middle of it because I'm going to be putting an eyelet in there. And then I'm going to mark where I'm going to put the eyelet. The eyelet's going to go through not only this little round disc, but also my flap there. Okay, now I'm punching holes on each side of the little flap. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to run a string back through the back that will attach to the back, and then it'll tie around the front, and that'll keep that flap from opening. So I'm just going to kind of shove it through the back. Again, this is going through that linen tape, so that makes it structurally strong. And I just punched a little tiny hole with my pokey tool because that's all I really need. You can see I changed the string to red and white, but then I change it back later. Now I'm putting my eyelet on my little round circle and attaching it to the flap. And that's going to work as the closure for this little flap thing. I basically change out the string only because I figure out it's really too thick to go around my little circle. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to decorate my little pocket notebook. And I'm using some more Tim Holtz paper, and this has just the tickets on it. Since we're doing this little travel theme thing, I thought it worked good. So all I'm doing is I just put some glue down and I'm covering it. The important thing when you're doing something like this is to make sure you fold it before you cut it, because what will happen is it'll stretch out and the paper will move a little bit. So you want to make sure you have it in its final position, which that way you can make sure it goes all the way across. So anyway, I'm just going to cut around that, and that's pretty easy. Now I'm going to take, this is the Tim Holtz stencil cards, and I'm going to make a pocket out of that, which I'm going to attach to one of the flaps on the folio. So I'm only putting glue on 3 sides, and then later I'll sew around it and I'll actually sew it to the folio. I'm using this red and white paper to kind of follow our theme. So it was really important for me to make sure that when I was doing this, that it just didn't have a very haphazard kind of look. I wanted it to be eclectic, but at the same time look intentional, where things were, repeated patterns going across, repeated elements, that type of thing. And I think that's what makes this kind of a project work, is to repeat that kind of thing. So now I'm using the new Chapter 3 embossing folder. Again, I'll put that in there in the description box. But what I'm using is some metallic rubbing paste. So I'm going to glue that on and cut it out. And I start with kind of a maroon color, and then I add some red, and I think I add a little bit of bronze. And anyway, it works really good. On these 3D embossing folders, they always turn out really good. I love this numbered one. So I don't know if you can really tell, but there's like 3 different colors on there, and you can tell close up, but if you wanted it brighter, obviously you could use other things, paint, distress ink, but I wanted it to be kind of subtle. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. So I'm adding the gold and the bronze just to kind of give it a more vintage look. And now I'm using this same red, white, and blue paper that I used to make that little closure disc. So again, I'm repeating the element, and I'm going to go ahead and use that to cover the white part of this library card or library pocket. So I'm going to ink that up and then just put that in and glue it in there. Now what I'm doing is I have some scrap pieces of that same embossing folder, a piece that from the same piece actually, and another scrap piece of the red, white, and blue, and I'm making some pockets, and I'm going to be putting these pockets on the middle portion of the folio. So I'm basically doing the same thing to it that I did with the others, and it goes in the middle there. Now I have some of that same red, white paper that I used on the stencil card that I made a pocket out of, and I'm going to put that on top of our little notepad thing there, because to me it looked kind of plain. It looked kind of weird just with the paper. So I'm measuring my holes, and I measured my piece to see how big I want it. Figure out where I'm going to put my holes on it. And then I have another scrap piece of, again, the same embossing folder, and that I cut. And I thought, well, I'm going to use that. I have a couple of scraps. I thought, well, I'll use that to decorate, again, to repeat the pattern. I'm going to put some on the bottom, but then I also find some other scrap paper, because to me it looks a little bit too I don't know, too matchy. And then later on, you'll see I sew all of these different elements too, just to, again, to make it look more cohesive. So I'm folding that down, and gonna make sure I punch the holes through the blue embossing part that I added on later. And those are our pockets for the front of our little flap. And now on the very back where we put the string through, I don't like that string showing, so I'm deciding what am I going to put on the back, and I just decide I'm just going to put a little piece of paper on there, and then what I'm going to do is it's going to be covered later. So that structurally will help keep that string in place and keep it strong for in there. And then what I decide to do is I have some more of that, a scrap of that ticket paper, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on the back with another scrap piece and sew around it, and that makes 2 pockets in the back. Now I'm putting the stencil card down on the flap, and I'm going to glue it just on 2 sides so that we have an opening, so we still have a pocket on the inside. And after I glue it down, I'm also going to sew it, but I'm going to glue it first. And I'll go ahead and put some clips on there so that it adheres well. And you can see I already put the library pocket on. Now I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do on the other little flap. I want it to kind of coordinate with the other side. So I go ahead and I decide I have this envelope I think will look good as kind of a coordinating element to the stencil card on the other side. Now I'm trying to decide which side I want the opening. Do I want to make it a pocket? What do I want to do? And as you see, as I cut it down, so I'm going to go ahead and glue the bottom so that it's still an envelope. But I think I'm going to put it like that and leave an opening on the other side. I haven't decided 100%, and you'll see what I do in a minute. But that's most of the structure. So I think so far it's looking pretty good. I still have spots I need to fill in. So now I'm going to go ahead and decide where I'm going to put everything and finish gluing it all together and add a few more elements. Okay, so what I decided is I'm going to go ahead, I put the envelope facing the outside, and I'm going to go ahead and add some Tim Holtz dolls on each side because it just seemed like it was missing. So I'm putting one on each side so it balances out. I have a couple on the left side that look like they're going somewhere, and it looks like a mom and a daughter all dressed up with some place to go. And then I've got these guys in the middle, and what I'm going to do with them is this is the little fold out portion, and I'm going to put one on every other little space there, and just glue them on the bottom, and that way it'll make a little tuck spot in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put some clips on there to make sure that those stay glued. And that's the other side. So I've got brother and sister and mom and dad all getting ready to go on a trip. And I figure out where I want them and glue them all down. And in the very back, I decided on the last part, I'm going to put one of our little envelopes and cards in there that we made. Now I decide what I'm going to do on my little fold out flap in the front. I decide that I want to attach some little envelopes that I have. And I'm going to be using the Tim Holtz little tiny bull clips to do that. And then I found this other little element in my snippets that I thought would look really good on that little little pad that we did, little notepad that we made. And you'll see that little red card there, and I will decorate that up later. You'll see that. And I'm doing that to add, I want to add some of the same elements all the way across. So I'm just kind of measuring to make sure everything will work. And that's going to go there. I decide I'm going to go ahead and do some decorating with the new Tim Holtz rub-ons. These are also chapter 3. I really like these because they make adding things pretty easy, and they're very bold, so you can really see them. So I decided to add that on this card. The reason I use this red card and then that ticket, again, I was trying to repeat that ticket pattern that I had from the little notebook that I put on the other side. And you'll see I also put rub-ons on the little notebook too, just so I, again, repeat that pattern all the way across. And as you can see, I've already sewn around some of these elements, so you can see that the sewing does add something. Now I'm adding some numbers to the file folders, and I have four pockets, so I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4 in there just to add that pop of black. Again, repeating the pattern. Okay, so now I have these little cut-out cards, and they're thicker, kind of a cardboard, but they're a little bit too thick. I do like that they pop out, but a lot of times they're a little bit, this chipboard's a little bit too thick. So what I do is I just pull off some of the layers, and then they work great. So I'm going to put that in there because it looked like it needed a little decoration. And now I have some chipboard words that I'm thinking. So these are all Tim Holtz that I want to put on there. And I kind of mess around with those a little bit, trying to decide where I want to put them all. Then again, I'm pulling up some scrap pieces of paper and just kind of messing with that, just to kind of see. Now I'm looking at some other words just to see if maybe I want to add more. So then I decide to put one on each of those two sides and then nothing in the middle so that it coordinates. I just have to decide what I want where. Now I'm going to glue my Tim Holtz people down. And this doesn't go all the way down. It's only like the one lady gets glued down and part of the other one. So it's kind of popping out. And then there's a little pocket behind them. And I do that on the other side as well. And put those people down. Again, this is to make it look cohesive. And I clip those all down to make sure that they stick. Okay, so now what I'm going to be doing is adding an eyelet to the middle of my spine, my first spine where I have the notebook. And that is so that I can add an elastic closure. This is just a little tool that I bought, oh gosh, years and years ago. And it was very, very inexpensive. It's great if you want to do an eyelet in the middle of a page or something. I know you can get like the Big Bite or whatever, but this is, I think it was like maybe $5 or something. So anyway, I'm taking some of the same 2mm elastic and tying it through with a knot on the inside, and then that gives me my closure. So that's structurally pretty much what I have. I'm going to add this little tiny blue star because I had the red star on the other one because I needed something to close this envelope to keep it closed. Again, I'll take some of the layers off. And what I do is I just basically put glue on the bottom portion of it so that way it'll tuck in there. Again, it's a little bit thicker than I want, so I took off some of the layers. That just slips right under there. And of course, I'm going to be doing a lot more decorating on this, but these are basically all the structural things that I did to this folio to kind of make it my own. Just kind of giving you an idea of the kind of things that you can do with it. So I'm going to leave that clip to make sure it dries. And that's pretty much the structure. The only thing, I'm adding a couple pictures that I'm going to put inside that little envelope, but that's not really a structure thing there. And I'm using this deckled edge because I think that's kind of how the old pictures looked. And these are the snapshots. I really love these. From Tim Holtz. They're really fun. I think there's a good variety, and I don't know, they're just kind of fun. So that is pretty much coming to the end of the video, and if you want to see the final product, look at the flip through, and basically it's just adding a little bit more decoration. The structure pretty much is it. This is pretty much everything. So you can see everything that I added. The file folder is going to go in the back. That's probably the only other, or the little envelope, I mean, with the file thing in it. That'll go in the very back, and I'm just going to glue that in. So that's the only thing I need to add structurally, and then the rest is pretty much all decorations, guys. So you'll see that in the flip through. That's it. Thanks for watching.